Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. So today is my first makes video of 2021, and so all the things that I've made in January this year. I don't think I've been making that much stuff over the last few months. I felt my sewing inspirations really come and gone in drips and drabs, and I've had periods where I've had loads of inspiration and made loads of things, especially in the run up to Christmas, and other times where I've felt like I've hardly done anything at all. And you know, I've just given myself the time and luxury to chill on the sofa and watch a lot of Netflix. If you haven't watched it already, I would really recommend watching Bridgerton. It's a lot of fun. So I'll share with you what I have made in January. I've been doing a few things. I've only completed a few items. I've been trying out lots of other crafty things, which hopefully I'll be able to share more with you next time. I'll start by talking about the first item on my list, and that is the pinafore dress that I am wearing right now. So this dress is a self-drafted make. I've made a lot of pinafore dresses in the past, things like the Tilly and the Buttons Cleo dress, the named pinafore, the U2 pattern in their book. The latest one that I've made is the Ricky pinafore dress from Our Lady of Leisure, and I've liked all of them. They've all had their good points, but I've also felt that they've all had their not necessarily bad points, but things that didn't quite suit what I wanted. So I thought that it was time for me to just draft my own, especially for something that's this simple. So what I wanted was something that was quite A-line in shape, just a loose fit, really boxy across the top, on the front and on the back, with kind of quite chunky straps. I wanted it to look very kind of schoolgirly, kind of school pinafore dress kind of thing, very fun, very playful. And I think I managed to achieve that. So you can see what I have here. So as you can see, it's got that A-line shape, kind of a lowish dip down to about the waist, quite high on the front and on the back as well. And you can see I've kept it quite high on that area as well. What you can't probably see in as much detail is the seaming detail on here. So I've made this out of this corduroy fabric that I got from Sew Me Sunshine in this gorgeous seafoam green. It's just the loveliest fabric, but of course on corduroy you don't see things like top stitching and stuff like that so well. So what I have on this pattern is put in a centre front seam, which I've top stitched, and I've also got a kind of a waist seam here as well, where I put in some inseam pockets like so. I've also got a seam on the centre back as well down the middle, which is top stitched too. All of the top stitching detail, if I had used something plainer, a denim, canvas, linen, something like that, then you would have seen all of those details much more effectively. Of course, in this you've already got lots of stripes going on, so you don't see those details so much. I was really naughty with this pattern. I didn't do any test runs. I drafted it, had a reasonable idea of how I was going to construct it, and then just went for it in my final fabric. I would really not recommend doing this yourself at home if you are drafting stuff from scratch, just because there's always that risk that it might not work out. Okay. In this case, because it was such a simple pattern and shape, and I was able to compare it size-wise to other makes, dungarees, pinafore dresses, etc., I could get a really good idea from there how it was going to fit. Also, it wasn't super high stakes in terms of fabric as well. It was pretty reasonably priced, and I didn't have to use that much of it. I used about a metre, just over a metre, in order to make this. I am so happy with how it turned out. I literally want to have one in every single colour. I wear it all the time already, despite the fact that it's a mini dress and it's freezing outside at the moment. I think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it. I think I'm just regressing a little bit. I want to look cute and adorable all the time, and pinafore dresses are very much in that zone. It's also just really comfortable. And in this time where, we want comfort more than anything else, this really hit the spot. So this next make that I'm sharing with you is this cardigan that I made. So this was made using the Perth cardigan pattern from Goodnight Day, and that's a knitwear designer that I've got a ebook for, and I've used her patterns once before to make this sweater. And I thought it was high time that I make good use of that ebook that I bought to make something else. So this is the cardigan that I made. So this originally started out life as one of the other patterns in the book, the Carlisle cardigan, which is very similar in terms of the size and shape of it, but it has a whole chunk at the top. So this part up here, basically like the yoke of it, that is all done in a garter stitch, and garter stitch just adds a lot of bulk, like it's quite a bouncy texture afterwards. And after I'd knitted about 2/3 of the sweater of the cardigan, I decided that I didn't quite like how it looked to me because I just felt like it was too much up here. So I ended up undoing it all and re-knitting it again with just a stockinette stitch on the top, which is what the Perth cardigan is. I did make some changes to the pattern, so I did size it up a little bit by adding a couple more stitches onto the front and back bodice, and I've also just made it a bit longer than the kind of recommended pattern length, although they do state that, you know, you can make this as long or as short as you want to. I also added a kind of cable knit thing to the arm, so you can see that where it's kind of twisting out on each side as well. I knitted this up in a wool I knitted this in a chunky yarn that I got from Wool and the Gang. It's called Cinnamon Dust. It's their Crazy 60 wool, so they're really super bulky yarn that they make. I was only able to get 4 balls of it, and that was from like several different sites as well, and then I couldn't find any more of it. I really hoped that that was going to be enough to complete the cardigan, because, you know, 4 balls they're 200-gram balls, it's a lot of yarn. However, I got to the sleeves and realised I was just short of what I wanted them to be, so I've added on these pink colour block sections at the end, and this is in a yarn that I got from Stitch and Story. Again, they're just their chunky yarn in the Heritage Pink. I don't mind the colour change. I put them in because I didn't think that they were going to restock the Cinnamon Dust one, but I have found out recently that they are restocking it. So what I may do at some point in the future, if I can be bothered, is actually just undo the sleeves, because they're knitted top down. I can actually just undo this part and just re-knit that in the same colour as the rest. I'm going to see how much it bothers me as to whether I'm going to bother doing that or not though. So I really like how it turned out. I really wanted it to feel like a kind of bomber jacket style cardigan. I think in terms of the size and shape, I've very much achieved that. It is a raglan sleeved pattern. Yeah, I'm gonna say pattern. Hopefully you can see that here. So you start from the top and knit down. I knitted these in 15mm needles and using a smaller needle size 10 for the top and the at the hem as well, so you can see that it's a bit of a tighter stitch on the rib sections. I also decided to use a twisted rib stitch instead of a regular rib stitch because I just quite like how that turns out. It's just a little bit neater on those sections as well. So it's lovely, it's really thick, it's really warm. However, I find that with all the cardigans I've knitted so far is that they want to just do this. Nothing ever really wants to stay on my shoulder, regardless of what kind of size and pattern that I make. And I've made quite a few. I say quite a few. This is my 3rd cardigan that I've knitted, and everything always just doesn't seem to quite fit how I want a cardigan to fit. I don't know if that's to do with the patterns, how I'm wearing it, the yarns that I'm using, etc. If anyone has any tips on how to improve that, please let me know in the comments below. So this is one of my latest makes, the Grainline Archer shirt, which you may have seen in my last video with my fabric haul. I don't think I've taken this off since I finished making it. So I've always wanted to make a really traditional plaid flannel shirt. I'd always had the idea for it, kept putting it on the back burner. I actually had the fabric and the pattern for it and just never quite got around to making it. I originally made the Archer shirts a few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago or so. And I'd made it in this polka dot crepe fabric, which at the time I thought was a really good idea. But after I'd made it, I realized that actually I didn't really quite like how the fabric and the pattern meshed together. And I think after wearing it a few times, that one has ended up in the bag to go to the charity shop. Which is fine, by the way. I don't expect all my patterns and fabric matches to go perfectly together. It's always a bit of trial and error. But I did really like the pattern. The pattern itself worked really well. I thought it went together beautifully. I really liked the instructions for it. So I thought that it was high time for me to bring it out again and to have another go of it. So with plaid shirts, I go through phases. I will have months where I wear them all the time, and then other times where I don't even remember that they existed at all. I'm obviously going through a phase where I want to wear one all the time right now. And I really wanted one that would feel kind of a bit oversized, a bit like a boyfriend shirt, you know, something that your partner's left around that you've decided to wear instead. And so what I did to kind of achieve that is, firstly, I sized up by 1. I have lengthened the bodice of this by 3 centimeters, and I've straightened out the side seams as well. So the side seams would naturally curve in very slightly at the waist, and I've just straightened that out to have a really boxy appearance. I've also done a big bicep adjustment on this as well, just so that I can have a bit more ease on the arm. I probably could have gotten away without doing that. I think that it would still have fitted fine, but I really wanted it to feel really oversized and slouchy. You can see the sleeve is really long on me. This is the actual length of the sleeve of the pattern, so bear that in mind if you are someone for whom long sleeves are really annoying. You may need to trim them back if you have short arms like me. I think these patterns are drafted for someone quite tall, so do take that into account. There are a few other things that I did that weren't in accordance to the pattern instructions, and that was where I've cut a few pieces on the bias instead of on grain, and that is to create these kind of diagonal effects here. Partly I did that because I think it looks cool. Partly I did that to avoid having to do too much pattern matching as well. It's a bit of a trick with that. So I did that on the button band on the front, the pockets, the cuffs, and also on the back yoke. So you can see that too. And you can see what kind of effect that has. So most of these pieces are all interfaced or faced. And so that meant that, and I used all the facing pieces and cut those on the grain, which meant that actually there's very limited risk of things kind of stretching out and things like that, which is one of the main reasons why you wouldn't necessarily want to cut things on the bias when they should be cut on the straight grain. The only things that didn't get that treatment were the pockets, but I did add a bit of interfacing to the top of the pockets to make sure that they wouldn't stretch out too much. Overall, I think it worked really well. The only other thing that I wish that I had changed that I didn't was the collar and the collar stand up here. So as you can see, like me pulling that closed it's snug up here, and I would really have liked that to have just that little bit more ease around this area. I wanted this almost to feel like a jacket, like an overshirt type thing that you throw over things, and I think actually having that bit of extra ease around this area here would have really helped too. It's not enough of a problem that I'm not going to wear it though. It's just something to bear in mind that if you wanted to replicate this, do something similar, that you might want to do a small adjustment there in order to just make the neck area a little bit wider. So this last make that I've got to share with you today is this dress. So this was made using the Tabitha pattern from the Tilly and the Buttons book, Make It Simple. The Tabitha dress it's not really a dress, it's a t-shirt pattern which has a hack included in the book on how to add a skirt to it, and which has a drawstring waist to pull it in like so. I've made this pattern a couple of times before. I tested the pattern for the book to start off with, so I made that an absolute age ago, and then last summer I also made another version of it as well. It's a really nice simple pattern. It's a dartless jersey knit pattern, so it's the one that's, you know, very easy to sew up. It's very quick and quite satisfying in that way as well. It's also quite just a good go-to if you've got jersey fabric that you're not quite sure what to do with, which is what happened in this case. So I picked up this jersey from Fabworks Mill last summer. It's a really lovely viscose jersey. It's really soft, it's got a good stretch to it, really nice and drapey. You can see kind of how fluid that is. And I thought that actually this was a really good choice for the Tabitha Dress. So of the two versions that I made already, I felt that the original version I made in this grey jersey fitted better than the second version I made, even though the patterns were identical. And I think a lot of that's to do with how much stretch and how much, you know, give and drape there was in the fabric. The grey fabric that I used just, you know, was it was basically a bit of a looser weave than the other jersey that I used, and it just meant there was a lot more give, especially across the bust. And I just felt that like this whole area fitted a lot better in that stretchier jersey. And this jersey had a lot of the same kind of components to it as that grey jersey in terms of the stretchiness and the drape of it, so I thought that this would be a good choice to make it once again. I also couldn't think of anything else to do with it, and I felt determined to make something with this fabric. So to make it a little bit different, I made it with long sleeves, as you can see. And after I added the long sleeves, I was like, oh, it still feels a bit boring. I want to do something else to it. And that's when these ruffles came in. So I added on long strips of fabric, which are about twice the length of the circumference of each of the cuff and the neckline, which I then gathered and attached to it. These are all finished with a roll hem from my overlocker, which just gives it a nice, neat finish. The neckline here, as well as kind of stitching in, I then put a neckline binding over the edge, and that just helps everything to sit really flat here. I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sold on all the ruffles. I really feel like it's very of the moment, and that ruffles are on everything at the moment. And I've, you know, you can probably see if you follow my vlog or blog that I am ruffle mad right now. But even this I think might be a step too far. So what may happen in the future is that you may end up seeing this with 3/4 length sleeves and some sort of plain scoop neck. That's the beauty of making your own clothes, is that, you know, I can alter them, I can change it, I can do whatever I want to them later on in order to make them suit me. So that is all I've got to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.